high-altitude satellite push-in toward Horn of Africa with HUD border traces and Red Sea bloom. What if tomorrow Ethiopia stood before the world and declared, "We no longer recognize Eritrea's independence"? Would Eritrea disappear as a country? Would Ethiopia suddenly reclaim its lost coastline? Or would this ignite one of the most dangerous conflicts in modern African history? In this video, we dive into the hidden truth behind this question. The history, the law, the politics, and the explosive consequences. Eritrea's independence is one of the most dramatic stories of the 20th century. After decades of struggle and a bloody war with Ethiopia, Eritreans finally voted in a 1993 UN-supervised referendum, with more than 99% choosing independence. Ethiopia, under Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, officially recognized the new state. Since then, Eritrea has been a member of the United Nations and the African Union. But in today's Horn of Africa, the question of revoking Eritrea's independence has started to resurface, quietly in political debates, loudly in public rumors, and dangerously in regional power struggles. To understand if Eritrea's independence can be revoked, we first need to know what makes a country a state under international law. The Montevideo Convention sets out 4 criteria: a defined territory, a permanent population, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. Eritrea meets all these requirements, but being a state is only the first step. Recognition by other countries is what brings a state into the international community. Recognition is a political act. When most countries and the United Nations accept a state, it gains legitimacy and a seat at the table. But recognition can be complicated. For example, Taiwan is recognized by some countries, but not by the UN. Palestine and Kosovo have partial recognition, yet they function as states. Sometimes, a country withdraws recognition, like when some states derecognize Taiwan in favor of China. But that doesn't erase the state's existence if others still recognize it. So, even if Ethiopia withdrew its recognition of Eritrea, nothing would change legally. Eritrea would remain a sovereign state, a member of the United Nations, and continue its international relations. The recognition by one country is a political gesture, not a legal erasure. Eritrea's flag would still fly at the UN, symbolizing its enduring statehood. So why would Ethiopia even think about revoking Eritrea's independence? 1. Access to the sea. When Eritrea broke away in 1993, Ethiopia lost Assab and Massawa, the very ports that once fueled its trade and naval reach. Since then, Ethiopia has become Africa's most populous landlocked country, paying high transport costs and relying almost entirely on Djibouti. The memory of those ports still lives strongly in Ethiopia's national identity, but independence was also born out of political weakness. Many argue the government of that time accepted Eritrea's separation without truly safeguarding Ethiopia's long-term interests. What felt like a quick solution then became a historic burden. That's why the current government openly shows dissatisfaction. Leaders say Ethiopia cannot remain forever without direct access to the Red Sea. This frustration is one of the main reasons the idea of revoking Eritrea's independence keeps returning to the debate. 2. Regional power. Some Ethiopian nationalists argue that regaining Eritrea would restore Ethiopia's historic position as a Red Sea power. 3. Domestic politics. At times of internal crisis, raising the Eritrea question could serve as a tool to rally nationalist sentiment inside Ethiopia. But while these reasons may sound powerful, they come with enormous risks. If Ethiopia revoked recognition, what happens next? Diplomatic isolation. The African Union and the UN would reject Ethiopia's move. Addis Ababa would face condemnation, sanctions, and even isolation. War risk. Eritrea is one of the most militarized nations on Earth. Any attempt to reclaim its territory would likely trigger full-scale war, and the 1998-2000 border war already proved how devastating that can be. Regional destabilization. Sudan, Djibouti, and Somalia would all be pulled into the crisis. The fragile balance in the Horn of Africa could collapse. Economic disaster. Ethiopia depends on trade through Djibouti and neighboring countries. A new conflict with Eritrea could cut off routes, destroy development, and trigger humanitarian catastrophe. So, what's the truth? If Ethiopia revoked Eritrea's independence, Eritrea would not vanish. Its sovereignty would remain intact in the eyes of the world. Instead, Ethiopia would lose diplomatically, risk regional war, and deepen its own internal instability. That's why, despite the rhetoric, the more realistic path is negotiated port access, trade agreements, or regional mediation, not an impossible reversal of history. Eritrea's independence is more than a political decision. It's a historical fact written in blood, sacrifice, and international law. Revoking it would not only fail, it could set the Horn of Africa on fire. So, the real question is not, can Eritrea's independence be revoked? The real question is, will Ethiopia and Eritrea find a way to share peace, trade, and stability, or remain trapped in a cycle of rivalry?